We're moving on to senses. Sight. Add these to your notes.
Do you see it? Well then, let's talk about seeing. Seeing is another of our senses that is amazingly sophisticated. We look, see, and watch the world around us, yet we never stop to think how. Well, yes, it is obvious that our eyes do the seeing part, but how exactly? Did you ever wonder about your sense of sight and how it works? I'll show you. Your eye is almost like a ball. The dark circle in the center of your eye is called an iris. The small black spot in its center is called the pupil. Very well. The pupil is like a window of a room. It can open wide or shut narrow to let just the right amount of light come inside the eye. You can see it yourself. Go to a dark room and your pupil becomes bigger to allow more light in. If you move to a well-lit place, the iris will shrink to allow only the required amount of light. This light passes through the cornea, the aqueous humor, and lens to fall onto the retina. The retina is a super sensitive surface with lots of optic nerve endings. These nerves take the upside down image from the retina to the brain, which must first invert it and then make sense of it. The pupil and the lens continuously keep adjusting so that you can see the most clear image of the world. For some people, these adjustments are not enough. These problems can easily be corrected using glasses. So, if you need them, get them. If you already have glasses, well, then wear them. That's smart.
Smell.
It turns out it isn't just me. When you get a terrible head cold, like half of your nose gets completely stuffed up, but the other side, you can just get like a trickle of air through. Even stranger. Every couple of hours, your nostrils switch places between being mostly stuffed and all stuffed. Why does your body do this to you? Well, actually, your nostrils trade breathing duty all the time. You just notice it more when you're congested. It's called the nasal cycle, and about 8 of every 10 people experience it to some degree. In people who have a nasal cycle, one nostril is more swollen than the other, restricting the flow of air. Every 4 hours or so, the swelling in the first nostril goes down and goes up in the other. Now, there are reasons for this, and they have to do with why you have 2 nostrils in the first place. Besides that, it's super cute. Having 2 nostrils lets them split the workload and makes you a much better smeller. Let's start with the fact that your nose is the gateway between your lungs and the rest of the world. Lungs require warm, moist air no matter how cold it is outside, and your nose warms and humidifies the air you breathe. But especially when you breathe a lot of dry, cold air, it takes a toll on the lining of your nasal passages. The little hairs that maintain your respiratory tract called cilia work best if they get a break every now and then. If they don't get a break, they dry out, and if they dry out, they can't keep mucus and airborne particles out of your lungs. Restricting the amount of air flowing past them gives the cilia a chance to relax. The nasal cycle also helps you smell better. A smell is a detection of free-floating chemicals in the air. These compounds meet up with the receptors in your nose and form temporary chemical bonds with them. Then the receptors send a signal to your brain, and your brain's like, oh, I smelled something. But some odor chemicals bind to your nasal receptors more easily than others. These stickier smells need to move in faster flowing air in order for you to detect them. Otherwise, they'll just get caught in the entrance to your nose and won't be detected by the receptors toward the back. By contrast, chemicals that don't stick as easily need a slower airflow, so they have a chance to bind to their receptors before they fly by. So our noses split the difference, restricting the airflow on one side and letting it zip through on the other, allowing us to detect a greater range of smells. So while it may be inconvenient when you get a cold, the nasal cycle helps keep your lungs in working order and allows you to appreciate complex smells, like chocolate. Thank you for asking. Now, I have a question for you. Which one is it for you right now? Because for me, it's this one. This one's open and this one's more closed. And if you don't have a nasal cycle, I'd also be interested to know that. Thanks to all of our supporters on Patreon. Patreon is the reason that we get to keep making the SciShow, and especially thank you
the middle ear, and the inner ear. The auricle, the visible part of the ear, collects sound waves and directs them to the auditory canal. The auditory, or ear canal, is lined with cilia and ceruminous glands. The Earwax from the ceruminous gland and the cilia protect the ear from entry by foreign matter. The thin tympanic membrane separates the outer ear from the middle ear. Sound waves cause it to vibrate. The three tiny bones of the middle ear are the hammer, or malleus, anvil, or incus, and stapes, or stirrup. These bones pick up the vibrations from the tympanic membrane and transmit them to the inner ear. The eustachian tube of the middle ear opens into the pharynx and permits air pressure to equalize between the ear and the outside air. The inner ear is maze-like, consisting of bony and membranous structures surrounded by fluid. Semicircular canals are fluid-filled bony loops that help maintain our body's balance. The cochlea is a fluid-filled, snail-shaped structure that houses the organ of Corti, the true organ of hearing. The fluid aids in the transmission of the vibrations. The organ of Corti changes the vibrations into nerve impulses that are picked up by the auditory nerve. Sound waves are collected by the auricle, or outer ear, and sent to the auditory canal, tympanic membrane, ear bones, and then to the cochlea, where the vibrations are changed by the organ of Corti to nerve impulses and transmitted by the auditory or cochlear nerve to the temporal lobe of the brain for interpretation.
Change them into information that the brain can interpret, such as music or speech. Sound is a pressure wave that can vibrate either quickly or slowly. Slow vibrations produce deep sounds, while quick vibrations produce high-pitched sounds. Sound enters the ear and is directed through the ear canal, where it first reaches the eardrum. As the eardrum begins to vibrate, it sets the ossicular chain in motion. The ossicular chain consists of the hammer, anvil, and the stirrup. Sound vibrations move along the ossicular chain and into the inner ear. Within the inner ear, the cochlea plays a central role. It is here that the mechanical energy of sound is converted into complex electrical signals, which are then passed on to the brain. In simplified terms, the cochlea is a spiral-shaped tube filled with fluid. Sensory cells, also called hair cells, line the entire length of the cochlea. These hair cells have varying degrees of sensitivity for the detection of different tones or frequencies. This allows the ear to perceive the entire spectrum of sound. The change from mechanical vibration to electrical pulse is a complex process resulting from the movement of hair cells in the cochlea. Along the entire length of the cochlea, the hair cells are arranged like the keys of a piano. Hair cells located at the base or lower region of the cochlea are responsible for high frequency, while hair cells at the apex are responsible for the low frequencies. As the fluid in the cochlea is set in motion, it causes a corresponding movement of the fine structures on the surface of the hair cells to take place. These movements cause tension differences, which produce electrical signals that are passed along the hearing nerve to the brain. The auditory cortex of the brain interprets this information as sound, for example, as music or speech. The entire chain of events, including the various steps that convert sound waves from the environment into information that the brain can interpret, happens so fast that individuals can hear sound both continuously and instantaneously. Within this complex chain of events, there are a number of factors which can cause an individual to experience hearing loss. A loss of hearing can range from a mild to moderate hearing deficiency to a total hearing loss. In general, there are three main types of hearing loss which differ from one another depending on the part of the ear that is affected, be it the outer, middle, or inner ear.